I'm going to read chapter 3 of I Rode a Horse of Milk White Jade, a discovery, a decision. No hobbles could hold me then. At every turn of my mother's head, I sneaked away from my chores to pull myself onto the back of a horse and race across the steppes. Loud whoops of joy scattered behind us, mingling with the echoing hoofbeats. Remember, I told you wrong in the last video. Steps are not, I was thinking they were actually steps, which is incorrect. It's like a big plain. My father sighed, my mother fretted, but finally they pulled aside the flap door to our gare and released me to the outside world. My mother still worried that my bad luck would somehow find me again, so she placed around my neck a braided leather thong on which dangled a small horse of misty green jade. A good luck omen. She said it had been given to her by her mother, a shamaness, and those are like medical, not medical doctors, they're like holy men who seek to appease the spirit world. They are animists. So that means they are like very into animals. I think that's what an animist is. I can't remember. They make offerings to appease the spirit. They're kind of like what do you call those? Witch doctors, kind of like okay, only then did she agree to teach me the tasks of the outdoors, gathering dung, which is on here. Gathering dung in a world with no wood to burn, animal manure was the fire source. Gathering dung, combing the sheep, helping deliver the animal young. I worked hard, truly I did, yet always my heart thundered with the horses. I was not afraid of bad luck then, for even if it waited along the steps, I would gallop on by. One day in my 12th spring, so she's 12 years old, my father traded for some barley flour, which was highly prized. My mother and I were inside our gare kneading the dough, and through the smoke hole, I could see the blue sky dangling like a brilliant jewel just out of reach. Okay, so that's a simile, right? Blue sky like a brilliant jewel. Similes use like or as. I was supposed to be helping shape the dough into small rounds for frying, but to kneel in the shadows on a day when the winds whispered of secrets just over the next rise, well, oh, Una! My mother's voice was scolding, but when I looked up, I saw her brown eyes twinkled. Barley cakes are supposed to be round, like this. Yours look more like, she cocked her head, like horse hooves. Now tell me, what will your father say when we serve him horse hoof cakes tonight? Her tinkling laugh burst forth with mine, for we both could picture my father slapping his hands to his forehead, exclaiming to the gods that they had mistakenly given him a horse in place of a daughter. In a sweeping motion, my mother's arms gathered toward her the lumpy attempts at fetlocks and pasterns. Okay, so fetlocks is the hinge joint on a horse that allows flexion and extension. I'll put a picture up of a fetlock for you because that's a little confusing. And a pastern is, well, they're parts of horse hooves. They're parts of a horse foot. I don't think you have to get the whole thing. Let's see. Tongue flitting between her teeth, noisily, she jerked her head in direction over my shoulder. Take the basket then and gather some dung for the cooking fire, and don't be a tortoise. Rain comes. With a joyous shriek, I hugged my mother's waist and bolted outside. The afternoon sun glinted in my eyes as I bent to retrieve the large basket used for gathering dung. Tengri, the blue sky spirit, was pleased, for soft puffs of wind fingered my black hair, lifting the plaited ends. Plaited is like braided. Heart beating happily, I balanced the basket across my back like a saddle, clutching the wide leather strap to my chest. Then, whinnying softly, I bent to my task, an honest horse, though a lame one. I knew that had I actually been a horse, my role would have been as dinner for the dogs rather than as a worker for the clan. What does that mean? I knew that had I actually been a horse, my role would have been as dinner for the dogs rather than as worker for the clan. Okay, I guess she does not like working for the clan. With my long silk dell, and I put a picture of a dell up on the previous chapter for you, I think, right? Let me see. Man, there's a lot of tough words in this. A thick wraparound robe with a stiff stand-up collar, the traditional Mongolian garment. The tawny color of a sand grouse's underfeathers, that's a type of bird, rustling against my trousers and stirring a spicy fragrance from the purple and red flowers shivering in the breeze. I gratefully hobbled toward the low rise where the horses had spent the day grazing. Already this season promised to be my happiest, for at least I fit in. Looking down at my fingers wrapped around the leather chest strap, I saw past the stained nails and cracked skin. I saw hands that knew how to coax a wet and trembling lamb from a birthing ewe, hands that knew how to comb the soft underbelly of a goat without pulling the skin, and how to ease between a nursing foal and its protective dam long enough to squeeze a little of the mare's milk into a leather bag. I'd shaken off my bad luck, I thought proudly. The shaman came no more. Even my relatives let me work among them without pointing. My breath was coming hard now with the climb, so I stopped to rest, turning around to gauge my progress. The 5 round white gares of my ale, so white houses of her family, each door facing the south for luck, sat clustered in the valley below me. Already long green shadows stretched protectively across them. In another direction grazed our herd of sheep like little round clouds dotting the earth, and beyond them I could see that my uncles were rounding up the goats for the evening milking. Crouching like a predator just above the horizon was a long band of blue-black clouds, and I knew that I must gather the dung quickly or there would be little fire within our gare that night. Hobbling up the rise, the basket swaying upon my back, I must have resembled a small camel. Yet in my mind I was a horse, halting at the crest to sniff the air for danger, an angry boar whose yellowed tusks could rip through the belly of a fallen animal, or a hungry, long-fanged wolf roaming the grasslands for an easy dinner. Turning my head from side to side, I strained to catch the low growl of a leopard squatting, tail swishing in wait, but only a plaintive mewing met my ears. "Bader!" I exclaimed as the tiny, tiger-striped kitten bounded into sight, instantly weaving a pattern around my legs. "What are you doing all the way out here?" So it wasn't a leopard, it was a little cat. In response, Bator, which is spelled B-A-T-O-R, jumped onto my padded silk trousers, needle-sharp claws snagging a path upward. I had found the kitten 2 moons ago, dragging his half-starved body between one of the ox carts, and named him Bator, meaning hero. Now, I know the giving of a name to an animal is unheard of, but somehow, to me anyway, Bator seemed more than a mere animal. He strutted cockily, kind of like cocky, right? Meowing loudly, always announcing his accomplishments to the world. That day, although he was climbing my clothing with all the courage and determination of his name, I scooped him up in my hand, cuddling his furry body beneath my chin. Then I held him out in front of my face. "What is it that you want, little one?" Again, the tiny creature wailed, his green eyes shutting tight with the effort. "Oh, is that it? Well, I can't play right now. I have work to do. And besides, it's going to rain, so we have to hurry." With great effort, Bader stretched a front leg, the little toes at the end spreading to reveal 5 tiny pink pads. He mewed loudly. I chuckled. "I'll bet your feet are tired after that long walk. How about if you ride in the basket until I'm done?" Carefully, I dropped into the basket on my back, but before I could take another step, Bader had leaped onto my shoulder, mewing urgently in my ear. "Well, I don't know what you want, you little nuisance, but if you don't want to ride, you can walk." I set the squirming animal on the ground. Without looking back, Bader charged through the tall grasses, still crying out. And then I did know. From the time that kitten had come under my care, he had been able, somehow, to make me understand what he wanted. And now he was making me understand that something was wrong and that I needed to follow him. Eyeing the blackness flooding the horizon, I turned to follow. So it's getting dark. I could barely see Bader's stubby tail wending its way through the grasses. That's an interesting word. I haven't used that before, wending. I guess it kind of means like winding. But his loud mewing served as an effective guide. Ahead, I knew, lay a dried creek bed strewn with rocks. Bader's cries halted at its edge. Struggling up behind the kitten, I saw the reason for his worry. In the crusty, web-patterned dirt at the bottom lay one of our ale's goats. Her sides were swollen with a late pregnancy, and one miniature black foot, attached to a spindly black leg, protruded from beneath her tail. When she saw me, the goat lifted her head and bleated pitifully. Her cry was drowned by the first rumbling of thunder. Helpless, the goat dropped her head back to the hard ground and lay panting, her pink tongue bright against her gaping mouth. "Ayuna, come now!" The faint voice of my mother rushed across the steppe on the rising wind, but the storm chased hard behind it. Fat drops of rain began to pelt the 3 of us, her and the goat and the baby. Wheeling around, I stumbled, a sharp pain darting through my foot as a blast of cold rain struck me in my face. My heart began pounding as I realized that I could not outrun the storm. Daydreams had led me wandering farther than I should have on such a threatening day. Now, with my crippled leg, I was trapped. The goat bleated anxiously. I heard my mother's voice again, "Ayuna!" But I had made my decision. With just one glance over my shoulder, I dropped the basket and slid upon sharp, skittering pebbles down the embankment. She's going to go help the goat. That was the last time I heard my mother's voice. Even across the years of memory carried a fresh sadness in the old woman's words caught in her throat. She began to cough. The explosive, rattling noise made the round-sided mare snort in alarm, and for several minutes the dark stable echoed with an exchanging of gusts between human and horse. When at last her throat was clear, the old woman shook her head and, like the mare, snorted. Life is a funny thing, granddaughter, she said in a far-off voice. You never know when you're doing something for the last time. One day, drinking tea with a good friend, chatting about this and that, and then many years later, you look back and realize that was the last time. She paused and lowered her gaze. Her voice quavered when she spoke again. There was much I wanted to say. Her trembling fingers pulled a jade pendant from the folds of her robe. The misty green stone was carved into the likeness of a galloping horse, its long mane and tail streaming in the wind. I never got to thank my mother for this, she whispered. The woman fell silent, her watery gray eyes staring vacantly into the night. The girl, still nestled beneath her grandmother's arm, waited respectfully and then prompted her to continue. What happened? She whispered. There was no answer. What happened? She whispered again, her tone so urgent this time that even the white mare turned her black eyes upon the two and waited. A change surged through the old woman. She stretched her hands before her, and the moonlight shone upon molted flesh sagging from swollen joints. These hands have done more good than my foot has. Bad, I tell you. Anger rumbled in her words. Alarmed, the little girl lifted her head from her grandmother's lap. What was I to do? The old woman asked into the darkness. Wide-eyed now, the young girl could only swallow and timidly repeat, What happened? The old hands dropped, disappearing into the robe's thick folds. The goat and the kid lived. My mother died. Lightning. Bad luck. Of course, my father and I were punished. They believe in a lot of luck here. So that's chapter 3 from I Rode a Horse of Milk White Jade.